Hello and welcome to Family Matters. I'm your host, Ray Johnson, and today we're excited about the show we're bringing to you. Recently, Brenda and I had the opportunity to go to a pastor's retreat where we talked about strengthening the pastor's family. Well, what we talked to them about will apply to your family as well. So you stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Hungry?
Yeah.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Is uniting and strengthening the pastor's family. Now, it's one thing when we're dealing with uniting and strengthening the pastor's family, because we have to understand, and you know that as pastors, as the pastor goes, so goes the church. You said that earlier, right? As the pastor goes, so goes the church. If your family does not have its act together, you're going to be in a more dysfunctional than they already are church, and families will be a mess. You obviously have to live your life in a way that you can cover every subject. No subject should be off limits for you because you know you're not living that, right? So you should always live your life in a way that it is a demonstration to the people that are before you. It says there in Psalms 127:1, except the Lord build a house, those that labor, labor in vain. So when we're talking about building that house, what we're talking about is that the Lord has to be the foundation of everything you're doing. Has to be the foundation of how you're raising your children. So let's get into this. Except the Lord build a house, they that build it labor in vain. What we're talking about, one principle we're going to talk about is priorities. In order for you to build your house according to the Lord, for your house to be strengthened, for the pastor's house to be strengthened, it has to have the right priorities. You have to have the right priorities in place. And the first priority is God. And I put up there, don't confuse church and God. It's personal. Now, she talked about it, and many pastors, and you know, and I'm talking to pastors that are not in this room, some of the pastors you know, they will get their relationship with God in their church confused. They will think because they're working 80 hours a week at the church that therefore they have a great relationship with God. See, but your relationship with God is a personal relationship. They're not in this room, but we know many pastors, the only time they pick up a Bible to study is to prepare for the people and never to prepare for themselves. See, I've been around a while. I know I look young and good looking and all that, but I've been around a while, 50-something years old, and I've dealt with a lot of pastors, and we advise a lot of pastors. It's personal. We all see the news reports about pastors sleeping with the sheep instead of raising the sheep up, right? So we see the reports, and if your life is about church, but it is not personal with you, that's how you sleep with the sheep instead of tend the sheep. Next, number 2, and we're going to get into this, Brenda. Most important relationship that you have on earth should be your wife, your spouse. That should be the most important relationship that you have on earth. And so how does your spouse know that she is actually number one? And Brenda, we're going to do a little exercise.
Okay, you're going to take your paper or a piece of paper, and you're going to number it 1 through 3. And then you're going to leave a little space, and you're going to number it 1 through 3 again, each person. And what you're going to use this paper for, you're going to write on this piece of paper, because we were just talking about how does your spouse know? How do you know that, how do they know that you're treating them as number one priority? So first you're going to write down 3 ways that you believe you are showing your spouse that they are your number one priority. Write down 3 ways that you believe you are showing your spouse that they are your number one priority. 3 things that you do, or 3 ways that you show your spouse that they are your number one priority. And after you write that, for the second 3 points, you're going to write down 3 ways that you would love your spouse to show you that you are their number one priority. Serving them the way that they desire to be served. So when you use certain words like respect and honor, yes, those things we definitely do. But I have to tell him what communicates respect for me, what communicates honor to me, because what communicates honor to me is going to be different from what communicates honor to her. To me, honor may be when we walk down the street together, I want you to hold my hand so everybody knows that I'm with you and you're with me. I want you to put your arm around me when we're sitting in the park, because to me that communicates that you want me or you honor me and you want me beside you. So in communicating with our spouse, we have to be specific about what we want and what communicates to us what we need. Because he may say, I honor Brenda, therefore I'm going to go and buy her some nice lilies and put them on the table. And I may come in the house and I might say, lilies? I'm allergic to lilies. He must have forgot. But to him, he's doing something to honor me. He's doing something to appreciate me. So we have to constantly let our spouse know what we need from them, specifically what we need from them.
And as pastors, it's important for you to communicate that honor in front of your congregation because they're watching you. They're watching both directions if honor is being communicated. If you're showing up to church and your wife is not coming to church, that sends a message to the congregation. I always like to use this as an example. You go into a restaurant. Last night was buffet, doesn't work. But you go into a restaurant that's not a buffet, and you sit down, and the waiter comes up to you. How would you feel? You and your wife, you sit down. I come up. Welcome, sir. Glad to have you in our restaurant today. And I tell you what, today you're going to have a prime rib. It's going to be medium rare. You're going to have a baked potato with sour cream. And I think on the side, I'm going to give you a salad. And I think you also probably need to eat some cauliflower. Ma'am, what I'm going to give you today, you're going to have snow crab legs. You're going to have snow crab legs, and they'll have a dash of butter on them. And I don't think you really need potatoes. You know what I mean? So what I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you rice. And I'm going to give you a nice cold lager to go with yours. And I'm going to give you a mixed drink. And, of course, we don't do virgin drinks around here. So I'll be right back with your order. You're looking at them like they're crazy, right? Because they're the waiter, they're the server, they're there to serve how? How we want it, right? They don't tell us what we're going to get. They're there to give it to us how we want it. They're going to ask us, what do we want? Then we're going to give them direction. And if they come back and I say I wanted a medium rare steak, and it comes back well done, what am I going to do? I'm going to send it back and say I want it the way I ordered it. Your wives and your husbands are sending things back, and you're missing the clue. You're giving it to a medium rare, they're rejecting it and sending it back, and you come back medium rare again. You're completely out of touch with what's going on. So you have to tell them what you want, how you want it, when you want it. See, because I want what I want, when I want it, how I want it. See, that's how we all want it. If you're being honest, you want what you want, when you want it, how you want it. If you're being honest. Now, sometimes we will just take stuff, well, I don't want to inconvenience them, so I'm going to go ahead and accept it. Well, I know he's busy with the church and all. He's tired fooling with the church folk. He doesn't really have the energy to give me what I want, how I want it. Those are the kind of things, same thing. He at church, doing what he do. Wife, not giving him what he want, how he want it. Then all of a sudden, I start wondering. See, now all of a sudden you're being set up for soul tie, because men, we need to be stroked. We need to be told we're the hero. We need, we need our egos stroked. That's how we're designed. And if you never tell Big Daddy he getting it done, but one of the sisters at church, oh, Pastor, you the best pastor in the world. Oh, boy. Now all of a sudden, when he around you, his shoulders are slumped. But when he around her, because she telling him what a good pastor he is. Of course, we know she's got some ulterior motives. And can you lay hands on me? I'm feeling a little tension in my shoulders. Can you lay hands on me, Pastor? See, I'm talking real. And that's the beginning of the end. That's the beginning of the end.
Or they'll say, is First Lady person here? No, she's not here today. Oh, well, I can talk to you then. And see, that's an opportunity. That's a door that's left open for those type of comments to be made.
Have a healthy, strong family. These are the things you have to be aware of and looking out for. You can't be just walking around tripping. You know what I mean? You have to be aware of these things. Now, let's run through some of the things we just threw out there. Quality time. It's not just about time, but it's quality time. Now, men, we might consider it quality time if we're sitting on the couch watching the game and they're in the kitchen cooking dinner. But they probably, how many women think that's quality time? I'm not getting too many amens. Quality time, right? Date night. Don't get so busy that you no longer date your wife. Don't get that busy. You should be going on a date, whatever is appropriate for your lifestyle. But you shouldn't be going months talking about, we haven't been. No, that's completely unacceptable. Days off. Are you off or are you working from home? If you're at home, but the phone's ringing all day with church business and you're on the computer all day, you're not off. That's called telecommuting. That's called telecommuting. If your members, your leadership, if they are not trained to take care of the issues where you can take a day off, take a retreat to come to Virginia, that they have to call you and ask you everything, there's something wrong with your leadership. Something's wrong with your leadership. If you have to answer every question, do everything. Now, there might not be anything wrong with your leadership. There might be something wrong with your personality that you want everyone dependent on you. Because if everyone's dependent on me, then I have control, and you have to ask me. All of us have probably worked in jobs where people would not share information because they viewed it as job security if they were the only one with the answer. But we know real leaders will train their replacements. We know real leaders will become the bishop because they have trained men up to go out and do what's in their heart to do. That's real leaders. But a lot of pastors are not like that. They want to control everything. They want the people to depend on them instead of God. So you become God. They can't even pray for themselves. I got to call the pastor to pray. So we're not training them how to pray for themselves. That's how independent you have to train your members to be, to trust God first. To understand this, that you are a member in this church, but you are serving God, and I am the beneficiary as pastor of your service unto God. Even when you serve me, you're serving God because that's in order with the things of God. Your obedience to God is what's causing you to serve me, what's causing you to serve this church. You're not serving man, you're serving God. And I thank God that I am, as a pastor, you got to tell them, I thank God that I'm a recipient of your service unto God. That's appreciation. Vacation. Make sure you take vacations. Family meetings. This is something we harp on all the time. You need to have family meetings, children in church. You need to have family meetings with your spouse. A family meeting is something that should take place scheduled. Just like you schedule a meeting at church or work or wherever, your family meeting with your spouse, you should schedule that meeting. This is where you sit down and you talk about the issues concerning your household. If you have issues concerning the church, you sit down and talk about those things on a schedule and say the meeting is only going to last an hour. And these are 3 concerns that I have for next week's meeting on Thursday. You sit down in a calm environment and you discuss those issues and concerns that you have. It's not a meeting when you say something, they get mad, and you have intense fellowship. See, that's not a meeting. All right. You sit down and you have a family meeting. Then we say with the children. You then have a family meeting with your children. I don't care what age they are. If they're still living in your house, and we'll touch on this adult thing in a little bit. If they're living in your house, you have family meeting, and that's where everyone gets to say what they want to say, get to help plan vacation. 3 on your priorities, if you're going to have a strong family, is your children. Whether they're home or away from home. They're number 3. You have to let them know that they're 3rd in the priority list. God, spouse, then children. Talk about the mentality of what sometimes women will get as they raise, especially young children.
Well, also, how many of you have young children or grandchildren in the home? Any of you have young children or grandchildren in the home? And it's important that we let them know where they stand. It's important that we let them know that this relationship that you have with your spouse is number 1. Because we're raising them to leave. We're raising them to depart. We're raising them to point them in the direction that God has intended for them. So they need to know that when they leave, the 2 of you are not going to be at odds because of their lives. You didn't allow them to destroy this connection. They know what their place is. They know how it's going to work out. So we have to make it clear in our home. And I mentioned grandchildren, and we'll talk about that later, because we want them to have the right impression of this relationship. We want them to understand that they don't have priority over our spouse. that we have to do those things and support our spouse, sometimes over supporting something that they want to do or desire to do. So they need to understand their place, where they rank in the family. Also including them in the family meetings, letting them understand that this is time for you to tell us what's going on. And Ray mentioned earlier about the planning of vacations and getting their opinion, but it's also for small things. Our children are kind of reserved and quiet, especially our younger two. And they don't do a whole lot of talking. They're not gabbers. They're kind of quiet and not really shy, but just kind of reserved and cautious, I guess, is sort of their personality. So they would come to the table and we'd have the family meeting, but they didn't do a whole lot of chatter. They might say, "Dad, my doorknob is broke." But that was important to them. That was where they were at the time.
It don't matter what they say, it's important.
It doesn't matter that they're included in the family meeting. And now that we've moved into the stage of grandchildren, and we have one grandchild who is in our home now. And when he's old enough to come sit at the table, he'll be included in the family meeting also. And it may not be anything major, but just to have their voice heard. Just to have a time where they can sit down. They can even have a piece of paper and a pencil and sit down in the family meeting. So it's important for them to know where they rank, where they stand in the household.
Because some, children will play the ends against the middle, right? Yes. You're a parent, you know that. So if you don't let them know where they stand, if you don't present a united front, I asked Dad, he said, no, let me go ask Mom. So if you don't understand that when they go to ask Mom, if Mom doesn't say, well, let me go talk to your dad, see, that blows that whole game.
Yeah. Yes.
When you say, let me talk to your mom and we'll get back with you, let me talk to your dad, man, I was trying to, I already know he already said no, you know what I mean? So I came around the corner. I'm going to finish this up. Support what they do. That's important. Whatever they're involved in, you have to be involved in. Not to the detriment of your spouse, right? You don't want to be the 7-day-a-week soccer mom. All right?
But you also don't want your children to not be involved in sports because of church. Well, you can't play baseball because we're pastors and we don't have time for that. We got this meeting, that meeting. Well, what about next year? I want to play football. Sorry, you can't play football this year either. We're still pastoring and we got all these obligations. And so what about track? I'm going to run track in the spring. No, sorry, you can't be involved in track. Too much time. Rehearsal is on Bible study night, so you can't be in sports. And you don't want your children to go through their whole childhood not being able to do anything because you pastored.
And then they grow up and leave the church.
They won't want anything to do with the church.
Oh, here's what I know about church. My dad never saw me play a game. That's what I know about church. My dad could never be a coach. That's what I know about church. My dad didn't have time. Take the mic to Bishop. Comes to church. So here's the big question. Are you married to your spouse or to your church? It's important for leaders to know what your priorities are and that they should be the same in their household. See, you should be communicating what your priorities are, verbally communicating it in every opportunity you get, demonstrating it, and you should be saying, as I go, so you should go. I'm not here 7 days a week, you shouldn't be here 7 days a week. So it's important for you to communicate that to your leaders, that where you want their life to be, where you want their priorities to be. Because it's down to this. If I can get a healthy person who has a healthy family, then we will have a healthy church, then we will have a healthy community. So if I can get you to be whole individually, then you're going to be a good husband, a good wife, a good son, a good daughter. You're going to come into my church, and we're going to have a good church because it's got good, healthy people who are doing the right thing. Then we're going to go out in our outreach and reach out to our community, and our community is going to start becoming healthy, and crime will go down, and we'll start having an impact in the earth. That's why we're here, to have an impact in the earth. So we have to minister to people so they go, become whole, so that we can have the complete whole package. You might have couples, and deal with this all the time, we can't talk, right? We can't talk. You can talk, you can't communicate. You know, I have pastors that, trust me, do a lot of people. We can't talk. You can talk because you just cussed each other out. So there's nothing wrong with your talker. You know what I mean? What you can't do is effectively communicate. So let us give you some screwdrivers and hammers, and you can put down the butter knives in the shoes and use the proper tools. Now, when we counsel, we only give you so long to decide you're going to use the proper tools. We're not going to fool with you forever. If I tell you, here's some things that you might consider doing, and you come back in 2 weeks, and I go, how did that go? And you have an excuse, all right, strike one. We don't need to talk about nothing today. What you need to do is go do what we talked about doing. How am I going to put the second brick on the house and we haven't put the first brick on the house? We don't like to do that, but it reaches time in counseling that it go, okay, life is choice driven. You live and die by your choices. You have obviously decided that you want to play games and you really don't want to get your life together. C'est la vie. You see what we got up here again? What theme keeps coming back? They need to have family meetings. Because guess what? When you bring a couple into your office, you have a family meeting. Yeah. You have a family meeting. A family meeting that they could have sat at home and had themselves. 90% of everyone you counsel, when they sit down, if you say, let's pretend that I'm you two, what would you advise me to do? Now go do it yourself. Right? They already know the answers, right? They already know the answers. And they can counsel you.
Well, welcome back. I'm sure you enjoyed the show today. See, some of those principles we talked about as priorities for those pastors are the same priorities that you need in your relationship and in your life, and your life will continue to go on an upward climb. One thing I want to remind you is now you can view past episodes of Family Empowerment Ministries Family Matters shows on our website. Just log on to FamilyEmpowermentMinistries.org and click on the Episodes tab, and then you can look back at some of the shows. Well, thank you for tuning in, and as always, it is our desire that you will continue to have a family of love, joy, and peace. Until next time, you have a great day.
We have a special event coming up. Brenda and I have been married for 30 years, and we're going to celebrate it, and we want you to come out and celebrate with us. It'll be in September in Clinton, Maryland. We're going to celebrate not only marriage, but we're going to celebrate family, because that's what we're about, empowering family. Please log on to our website to learn more about how you can be part of this special event, and that is FamilyEmpowermentMinistries.org. Or you can email us at FEMI, that's FEMI, .07@hotmail.com, or give us a call at 301-877-1334. You see that information there on the screen. We would sure like to have you come out and be part of that with us as we celebrate 30 years of marriage.